There are very few people that disagree with me that will bring me on a live syndicated radio show like he did. And this was honestly probably my favorite debate I've ever had so far. I found it remarkable how quickly the felony claim against Trump falls apart when you ask a few simple questions.
So falsifying business records is a crime. We know he did that. We also know that there was a $120,000 payment made, a week or two before the elections to try to cover up what took place there with Stormy Daniels.
It was done way, way ahead of time, and he was cleared 11 months prior to that.
So you don't think there was any criminal wrongdoing at all in this?
What was the criminal wrongdoing?
I'm asking you because
I'm not claiming he did something criminal. So if he did something criminal, what did he do?
I'm not claiming it. A jury found him guilty.
So this is what happened on Tim Pool, though. But if I ask you, okay, but what did he do criminal?
Well, falsified business records, fraud, obviously is one characterization.
What did he falsify? Where was that? Where did that happen?
Inflating his business records. I mean, you could look that up. I mean, the 34 counts are pretty clear in what he did. Now, I think most people, even Tim Pool would agree that at worst case scenario, these were misdemeanors. And I guess what
did he inflate in regards to Stormy Daniels?
Okay, well, that's just one portion of
that's what he was. There was a singular action. He made a payment to Stormy Daniels. That's the only actual action that occurred. All the 34 counts are around that.
And my understanding, it was falsifying records and trying to and some people would use the term, it was campaign finance violations. And this was a week or two before the election, where
the chairman of the FEC, a prior chairman, came out 11 months earlier when all this was being debated and said this is not against the law. And he was even cleared 11 months later at the federal level. But then the DA of New York, who ran on a platform saying, I am going to get Trump, he said, we don't care. We're going to try it anyways. And that jury with him came to this conclusion. And people are questioning that. So when I'm asking for the evidence, and I can't figure it out, it doesn't.
Well, I'm not a juror. I didn't see the evidence that they saw. But let's just say you're 100, for argument's sake. Let's just say you're 100.
Shouldn't we be able to see that evidence if we're going to call the president a felon?
Well, I mean, you don't see all the evidence in every single case for a reason. Not every trial you get to see the evidence that the jury sees. That's just the way our country works. That's the way our justice system works. In a perfect world, I would say, yes, I agree with you. I think we should probably see all the evidence, but I think we should also probably see the Epstein files as well for the victims. I mean,
that's completely separate.
Well, it's separate, but yet it's not separate because Donald Trump is the president of the United States. He is weaponizing the DOJ, and this is a huge cover-up. This is the way Donald Trump has lived his entire life. And it's like,
but we're diverting away from something very specific right now.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a diversion. I was making the point that in every trial, all the evidence is not released to the general public or the media. That's just the way our courts work. There's nothing. I agree with you. I wish we could see all the evidence. Now, it's your opinion that there was no criminal wrongdoing. That's what I'm hearing from you, that you think this was completely
the evidence that is available indicates. Now, if there's some secretive evidence, if we're going to call the president a 34 count felon, which sounds really good, it's like, wow, it's 34 count. That sounds really bad.
I think it sounds horrible. I think it sounds horrible.
But in terms of political utility, it sounds great, which is a motivating factor in this. Then we should be able to point to some evidence. The same way, if you're going to call J.K. Rowling a bigot or a transphobe, you need to be able to show me something.
Evidence is the through line throughout this entire thing. Because when I ask for evidence of systemic racism, it falls apart.
Logically, equity does not work. So if you understand equity, like if we had 100, let's say we have 100 applicants to be firefighters in my local town, right? Okay. And 50, let's make it simple. 50% are black, 50% are white. They go through the process. Only 8 end up being firefighters are black. The rest of them are all white. Oh, that indicates a problem. How are you going to change that outcome, which is what equity asks for? There's only 2 logical ways. You can either change the standards or allow people through the process that would not otherwise have qualified through that process. You can apply this to any process. Can you think of any other way to achieve a better outcome other than those 2 things?
Well, I would start by saying that there are very few African Americans that are CEOs of Fortune 500. companies. Until recently, there are very few African Americans that were in certain positions prior, not because of their resumes. But I will say this, I just want consistency on this issue, right? I don't think race should be the end all be all for getting a position. I would agree with you there, but I would also say, wouldn't you call some of the people in Donald Trump's administration, for lack of a better term, DEI hires, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has little to no experience, somebody like
jumping away from equity? I thought we were talking about the very fabric of equity.
Part of DEI, and I think you're making the case of equity, but a lot of people, and I think you're one of those people that would say, I don't want somebody getting a job that doesn't have the experience that somebody else has, but they get the job because of the color of their skin.
That's one potential consequence.
Okay, so
you've sat down with Don Lemon. Don Lemon sat down with Elon Musk and claimed there's no evidence that equity could put anyone in danger by lowering standards at all. The logic is the evidence. I just laid out this logic for you. It is there is no other way within the laws of logic to achieve this outcome, which is what equity asks for.
I believe that if you have two people that have equal resumes and experience, one person is black, one person is white, I don't have a problem with choosing that person that is black to give them opportunity.
Wow.
Well, I don't know why you would say, wow.
Flawed. Okay, I'll tell you, because first of all, that's never going to happen. There are no two individuals in this world that are identical. Right? People make this argument as though that is possible. You're never going to have two identical applicants. You will always be able to choose someone who is better. There will always be one who is more qualified. You understand that? Even identical twins, they will never share all their past experiences, their history.
That's fine.
Potential.
I understand.
Why do you care about race so much?
Why do I care about race so much? Well, I care about people that are discriminated against, whether they be black people or transgender people or gay people. I feel like there's a lot of people in this country that are judged based on race, skin color.
Aren't you judging them by their skin color when you say, I'll choose you because of your skin color?
I want people to be treated as equals, no doubt, but you would agree with me that there is...
You just said you would choose the person because of their skin color. That's not treating them as equals.
Here's why. Would you agree that there's systemic racism in this country?
No.
You don't.
Can you provide evidence of systemic racism?
Sure. So Ahmaud Arbery
was an equity. Equity would be a systemic racism.
So Ahmaud Arbery was lynched by 3 white men. For months, there was not even arrest that was made. The mother was lied to by law enforcement and local politicians in that city. My question to you, if Ahmaud Arbery was white and 3 black men did the exact same thing, do you think there would have been arrests that day, or you think they would have handled it the exact same way?
There's no way for me to be able to answer that question. You could have a corrupt police department in a town,
not
with a
racist,
community that is corrupt.
Nothing to do with
racism. Will always exist at the individual level. When you're talking about systemic, you're talking about laws. Can you point to a single racist law?
I'm giving you
an anecdote. You're giving me an anecdote of insane people.
If George Floyd was white, would the same thing have happened to him?
No way for us to be able to know that.
No way for you to know. Even though the officer was a proven racist who had used the N-word in Derek Chauvin in the past, you think the exact same thing would have happened if they weren't recording? If they weren't recording that, it would have been a police report that said George Floyd was the aggressor, and you don't think it had anything to do with race?
How do you know that? How can you cannot logically know that?
Here's how I know that, because Derek Chauvin and those police officers filed a fake police report. And the only reason why Derek Chauvin is in jail right now is because there were good Samaritans that recorded it. That's why we know that.
How do you know that couldn't have happened if his skin color was different?
I'm asking you the question. You're making the case that if George Floyd was white, you believe the same thing.
I'm not making that case. I'm making the case that you're making a claim that is not logically provable.
It's not logically.
You said if his skin color was different, a series of actions, the following actions would have been completely different. There's no way to logically know that.
Well, logically, let me go back to Ahmaud Arbery real quickly, because I think you're a smart guy. And in my personal opinion, with respect, I think you're being disingenuous in this argument. You're telling me that I'm going to explain. Ahmaud Arbery, an innocent black man jogging down the street. 3 white people literally lynch him. Law enforcement had the video. They saw the video because, as you know, one of those white men recorded it. All of law enforcement there were like 20 or 30 cops on the scene. They all saw the video. Not one arrest was made. They lied to Ahmaud Arbery's mother. And hold on, here's the question. And you mean to tell me that if Ahmaud Arbery was an innocent white man in that city, jogging down the street, and 3 black men murdered him, not one arrest would have been made that day? Give me a break.
Logically, there's no way to. I get your point, though. Look, I'm not familiar with that example. It sounds to me like you had racist individuals doing something abhorrent, and that would have to be a deeply corrupt department. You're in the same way you're going to have corrupt individual police or pockets of police. That does not equate a systemic level of corruption.
Let me ask you another question then, because I guess.
But I'm not. How am I being disingenuous in this analysis?
Because I think anybody that, in this instance, maybe that is logical, would tell you that if Ahmaud Arbery was white and 3 black men did that to him, that it would have gone down a very different way.
That's not logic. That's thinking in generalities, though.
No,
I think opposite of logic.
I think it's understanding logically that there was racism in that system, in that police department, with the police officers and politicians, and they all lied. And I believe Ahmaud Arbery's skin color was a main factor.
It could have been a big factor, but people also, when they do something atrocious, they want to cover it up. They could have done something too atrocious to someone who was white and covered it up in the exact same way.
If you could give me an example of a white person that was killed by 3 black people and they covered it up.
There are many. I can't give you a one-to-one example of that scenario, but there are many white people who are killed at the hands of police every year. Mm-hmm. What would that be evidence of? I'm not making a claim that it's evidence of anything larger.
Okay, well, can you give me an example of a time where you were pulled over by police officers because of the color of your skin?
Well, no, I cannot. Now, what would that be evidence
of?
Well,
I don't think this is funny, actually, because I've actually driven with people who happen to be black that were pulled over for no reason at all, and it's pretty obvious to me. And even Tim Scott and others that are actually serve in D.C. Have told me, and many others, that they were pulled over. They're pulled over 8 to 10 times a year. They believe because of the color of their skin. I absolutely believe. Listen, I'm pro law enforcement.
Good example. Can we talk about this? Because maybe they drive differently than I do. I have been pulled over one time my life.
That's my point. That's my point. You're making my point.
Evidence.
So you think black people as a whole,
an absence of evidence is evidence of something larger?
You think as a whole, black people drive differently than white people?
You can't say, Warren, you've never been pulled over before. Therefore, that's evidence that you haven't been pulled over because you're white.
Warren, I've never been followed in an electronics store because of the color of my skin, because they think I'm going to steal either. Do you understand the larger point that I'm trying to make here? Sometimes black people
if you dress different, if you dressed with your in a stereotypical way, a white person could dress in a way that would set that store owner off in alarm and be like, I gotta follow this guy. He could be a security risk.
So you think people are following people for? You think people are following other people?
I think a black man who is a well-dressed black man, likely in most environments, is not going to be followed around. Again, there will always be individual racism, though. There are racist individuals.
So you think the major factor of why black people are followed in stores because in fear of they might steal stuff is not their skin color, but because they might be wearing baggy pants?
There's no way for me to know that. That happens at the individual level. Every store owner has a different reason. They're in a different environment. Different factors are contributing to that decision that they're making.
So is Tim Scott lying when he says that he was pulled over 10 times last year because of the color of his skin?
I don't know who Tim Scott is.
Okay, well, he's a representative in Washington, D.C., okay. And he ran for president. I'm just saying, I don't know what it's like to be black. Obviously, you don't know what it's like to be black in this country either. But I think, in my opinion, I guess this is where we disagree, Warren. Yes, I do think systemic racism exists. I do think that
evidence. Can you point to a single law?
Well, sure. You don't have to point to a law.
Yes, you do. If you're going to claim systemic racism, that's what systemic racism means.
But I've given you examples of why I think black people are not.
You've given me examples of individual racism.
Well, yeah.
That's not systemic racism.
So you believe that black people are treated the same as white people in our justice system as well?
They should be, yes. Our justice system is designed to treat people equally. That's why I'm alarmed when Trump is not treated equally.
Okay, so hold on. Warren, my question wasn't if you think they should be treated the same. I agree with you. They should. My question is...
There's no way for me to know. You would have to provide me an example of where it's not being applied fairly for me to say it's unfair.
Well, first of all, money is a big factor here. I think we both can agree that if you have legal representation and money,
I agree with that.
Okay, well, in this country, unfortunately, minorities, not as a whole, but many minorities in this country are suffering in poverty. And when they're arrested for certain crimes, they are not treated the same as somebody who has privilege, who has money that can get legal representation and can afford it. So isn't that a systemic issue to begin with?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to apply color.
I work with kids who come from nothing. All right. I've seen them from the worst circumstances. The vast majority in that school were white. So there are a lot of poor people that are of all different skin colors. You're absolutely right that your socioeconomic status is going to influence the kind of lawyer you can get. And I think that is very problematic. I agree with you. It's very strange that if you have enough money, you can navigate the system better. Sure. I agree with you there, but that's not racism.
It's remarkable when someone calls for the banning of assault rifles, but you cannot tell me what an assault rifle actually is. And this is a common misconception, what you're about to see here.
But the most important part of this entire conversation is that you all are calling for an assault weapons ban, and you can't tell me what an assault weapon is.
No, I think there are certain guns, there are certain AR-15 assault weapons, and there are certain other types of weapons that can shoot at a higher volume than certain other weapons. For example, like your everyday normal pistol that some police officers use.
Hey, hang on a second. How? You understand how this works, right? So if my pistol fires the exact same as my AR-15.
There are certain weapons, as you know, higher capacity magazine weapons that shoot at a higher rapid force than other certain weapons that are used.
What does that mean, rapid force?
Okay, well, there are certain weapons that are designed to shoot more bullets at a faster rate than certain other weapons out there.
No. Can we just clarify? This is really important. We need to clarify this. I think you're talking about automatic weapons, which are not legal. They're already banned. You're thinking like it goes. Brrr. So guns, so let me get it on camera. Semi-auto, which is what we're talking about, all these, they're going to fire as fast as I can do this. That's the limitation on all of these firearms we're talking about. Do you understand that?
I do understand that.
It's not like this gun can allow me to do this faster.
I do understand. There are certain
that's your distinction. You're saying that's what's going to determine this. And I'm saying that doesn't exist.
It was supposed to be only about 15 minutes. We ended up going for an hour and a half, so you can watch the whole thing if you want. Brian Shapiro is a cool guy. We have different views, but he's willing to have a conversation